welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about powders, loose powders, pressed powders, setting powders, and is there a difference between a setting powder and a finishing powder? What powder is good for mature under eyes? Should you bake? What should you use to bake? So if you want to know all about powders, especially the best ones for under eye and face for more mature skin, then please keep on watching. So before we get started, I do want to clear up one thing that several people commented on my foundations for mature skin video. So this is kind of like the third in a series. I did the best foundations for mature skin, I've done the best concealers for mature skin, and now I'm doing powders. And on that foundations for mature skin video, which I'm very thankful and grateful that it's been doing so well and so many people have appreciated it and found it helpful and are continue to view it. So I love that, but I have received several comments saying that I don't have mature skin, and for a couple of reasons. One being that they're telling me that mature skin is 50 and up, and that's incorrect. It is, I guess some people can view it that way, but in the beauty industry that I have been a part of for the last 20 plus years, it's considered kind of like 40, even sometimes 35, because the skin that you have in your 20s and even sometimes 30s is vastly different than once you start getting in your 40s. So the beauty industry categorizes mature skin as around 35, 40 plus. So I've tried to clarify that to those people in the comments, and I've actually seen videos on YouTube where someone who's in their mid 30s has done videos for mature skin. I don't know if they do that because it pulls in those viewers, because those of us who are over 40, we look at those titles and we say, oh, mature skin, I want to see what that person has to say. And I understand that, because our skin, as I just said, and it's obvious, our skin is different than a 20-year-old YouTuber, or the products a 20-something-year-old YouTuber would be using. So I understand it, but you know what? As the YouTuber, as the creator, it's their channel. They can do what they want. Maybe they are dealing with a lot of changes in their skin, dry under eyes, fine lines, because you can have a 45-year-old woman like myself that might not even have as many wrinkles as a 33-year-old. It's totally dependent on the skin. So when I'm talking about mature skin, I am referring to anyone really who has those issues that come along with getting older. So another thing that was commented on that I found a little strange was that somebody said that you can't have mature skin and oily skin. No, that is also incorrect. You can have any type of skin. You can at any age. My grandma was 87 when she passed away several years ago, and she had excessively oily skin. But that's why she looked so young up till the end. I mean, she looked, you would never know her age, but that's because, and I feel grateful because I'm in that same boat. I have really oily skin. It kept her skin just really youthful, and it helps with the wrinkles. It's a blessing and a curse, because the oil is such a pain to deal with. Your foundation separates and you're shiny all day long, and all these great products to control oily skin were not around when I was younger. So yeah, it's frustrating, but in the long run, it actually is kind of helpful, because it does keep some of the wrinkles and those issues. And I know a lot of women have told me that their skin changes even in their mid 40s, 50s. All of a sudden, things change internally, hormonally, and all of a sudden, oily skin can turn dry and all that. But it is not factual that you cannot have oily skin and mature skin. They're not mutually exclusive. I am living proof that you can be in your mid 40s with really, really oily skin. So now that that's out of the way, we can get to the powders. Another comment I had on that foundation video, several, was stop talking, get to the point. So I'm sorry, there are some things I want to get out and I want to say, and I think that it's going to be important for a lot of people to hear and understand. So I'm not always just going to get to the point, but now I am. So the first thing I want to talk about is setting powder. Is there a difference between a setting powder and a finishing powder? Yes and no. A setting powder, the word setting, means that you're using some sort of cream or liquid product on your skin, and you are setting it in place so that it hopefully will stay on all day, it won't separate. And those are typically in a loose powder form. Now, a finishing powder, yes, you want it to also set your makeup, keep it in place, but it's not gonna do as good of a job at keeping your makeup in place. It's more, or maybe you don't have a problem with your makeup lasting all day, but you just want to get rid of maybe a little bit of excess glow that the foundation has, or you wanna refine your pores, you wanna give a more airbrushed look to the skin. So a finishing powder can be either loose or pressed, and I wanna give you some examples. So a setting powder, Laura Mercier translucent powder. This is a great powder to set your makeup. If you're someone like me that wears a liquid foundation and you wanna take a light dusting and set your makeup so that it not only will stay on longer, but it will also give a little bit of an airbrushed appearance. This isn't a truly, in my opinion, airbrush finish powder, but it is a nice powder. It won't cake up. It doesn't really control shine, unfortunately, for me on my oily skin. But if somebody has maybe normal to combo skin, it's just a great setting powder. Now, someone with an oily skin is going to want something that's a little bit more mattifying, more oil controlling. So we'll get to that. But I want to talk about a finishing powder for someone with dry skin, because you might not need an actual loose powder to set your makeup. You might just want what I explained, moments ago. You just might want a little bit of an airbrush look, take down a little bit of glow that might come with the foundation, because a glowier skin, sometimes you do layer on, if a drier skin, sometimes I know you ladies and gentlemen, you like to put on, radiance primer or glowy foundations, but sometimes it can be too much. So you just want to tone it down a little bit. So a good finishing powder is this Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Finish Perfecting Powder, Skin Perfecting Micro Powder. And that's pretty much what it does. It just perfects the skin. It's beautiful. If you want to use it under the eyes, it works nicely as well. But I'm going to get to under eye setting powders in a second, or in a few minutes. So set the under eye area with a lighter shade. I have the medium, and I do like this, but not really on myself. I ended up putting it in my makeup kit because it works great, again, on my normal to dry clients, and for myself though, it doesn't have any oil controlling properties, and I need a powder that's gonna help control my oil. So some other loose setting powders that I loved and recommended in my videos are the following. One of them is the RCMA No Color Powder. I purchased this to use under my eyes because I had seen another makeup artist use this, and with great success on mature skin under the eyes. I, however, did not have great success with this under the eyes, so I've been using it on my face, much like the Laura Mercier translucent powder. I did not have good luck with this under my eyes at all. You see so many YouTubers out there baking with this. If you're not familiar with what baking it is, it's basically just taking a lot of powder and setting where you've highlighted or concealed and leaving it on for a couple minutes. I have one word for that, and me: disaster. It was an absolute disaster. It aged my under eyes 20 years. So let's say this one aged my under eyes 10, this one aged my under eyes 20. So for the face, awesome. And some others that I have had in my kit for years that I'm constantly recommending that's actually really, really affordable. It's the Nye Luxury Powder in Banana and also in Cameo. It comes in a lot of different colors. Banana was really popular for a while, probably 7-8 years ago, when Kim Kardashian was really into doing the really bright under eye, and her makeup artist, I think, said that he used this Nye banana powder. So everybody was buying banana powder, whether or not it worked for them or not. And it doesn't really work for everybody. You have to have more of that medium to olive skin tone to have this work. I use the Cameo because I am more light skin. I fluctuate between an NC, if you're talking matte colors, like an NC 25 to 35, depending on if I've self-tanned or anyway. But Cameo is great if you're lighter. And this one actually works pretty well under the eyes. So I have a few more face powders I want to talk about before we get to under eye powders. So a couple of months ago, I did a video on how to not make your foundation look cakey. And one of the things I mentioned was to not layer a heavy or even a powder with any sort of coverage on top of a foundation that has coverage. Now, if you're using a tinted moisturizer or something with very, very light coverage, you can go ahead and use a foundation powder on top of that. But if you're wearing a more medium to full coverage and then you go and put a powder foundation on top, it's gonna start to look cakey, especially if that's something you're using as a touch-up powder, like if you get shiny and you're using it as a touch-up. So for example, this Hello Flawless powder from Benefit. I used to love this powder before I went cruelty-free because it's a powder foundation and it is wonderful for using just as an everyday foundation. But you can also use some of their lighter colors and set lightly under the eye area with this. You have to be more careful if you have dry under eyes with this, but this is a powder foundation. So look at the package when you pick it up at Sephora or Ulta or wherever you are looking at makeup. Make sure that it says that it's a finishing powder, setting powder, airbrush powder, not foundation powder, not coverage powder. So make sure that you know that, because this is not something that you want to be touching up with throughout the day, because it will build up and it will get cakey. So what I have been touching up with for years and have gone through probably 30, 40 compacts, and I'm still trying so hard to find a cruelty-free dupe for it, but I am coming up short. It is the MAC Pressed Blot Powder. I've talked about this in so many of my videos. And it runs really, really light. So I'm actually in the medium dark. I've always purchased the medium dark. I have these everywhere in my house and in my car and in my purse, because it works so well, because I do get so shiny throughout the day. And with the blotting papers, I can go through 6, 7 blotting papers to get all the oil off my face. And it's time consuming, and I bought the Fenty roller blotting papers, and I almost put it up on Insta stories, but then I thought, no, that's gross. But I wanted to show you guys how really oily I get. I mean, I was just going like rolling a roll of toilet paper, just kind of taking it out, ripping it, using it, covered, taking it out, ripping it. It was, So I prefer to use a powder. Well, sometimes I'll maybe use like 1 or 2 papers and then go in with this, because this does not cake up at all. And people have recommended to me other powders to try, like the Fenty Invisimatte. I think that's what it's called. I did go to Sephora to try and buy it, but it was out of stock, and I meant to order it online. So I am gonna try it, but I purchased the Kat Von D touch-up powder, and it's actually in my purse downstairs, and I do like that, but it's still not as good as this. So if you have oily skin, this is clearly one that I recommend, and I'm searching high and low for a replacement, but until I do, I'm still using it. And of course, being that my skin, as I've said probably 25 times in this video already, I have oily skin. I have more powders geared toward oily skin that I want to mention. And one of them I've talked about in a lot of my videos in the last 6 months as well. It's the Peach Perfect Loose Powder. This one is probably the one I reach for the most. It's really, really finely milled. It doesn't have flashback in photography, and I actually can use it underneath my eyes. It doesn't have the brightening effect that I prefer, but if I'm in a hurry and I just want to dust over set my makeup and set my concealer quickly, I can use this for both, this Peach Perfect Mattifying powder. And it smells good, the packaging is pretty, and a little bit goes a long way. I'm still on my first container, and I bought it when it launched, I think in September. All right, under eyes. I know a lot of you have been waiting for this portion or have fast forwarded to get to this portion, and I will timestamp it in the description box if you don't want to watch about the face powders, but I hope you do. So for under eyes, I only have a couple of favorites. Now, I did mention that you can use those Ben Nye powders to set under the eye, but if you want a more brightening effect for the under eye, I do recommend the Laura Mercier Secret Brightening Powder. I recently purchased and actually talked about in a video the new Becca Brightening Powder, but I actually like this one better. I finally kind of compared them side by side, and I just feel like this one has a little bit more of a brightening effect, and it also didn't settle. The Becca one kind of settled and aged my under eyes. And a tip I want to mention when you're setting your under eye concealer, don't put it right up to the lower lash line. Kind of set it to like right here, and then just use your finger. If you get anything that settles right in that little line that we all kind of have right here, just take your finger and go back and forth just to blend it out, but keep the brightening powder like in this area right here, this hollow right here. And then another one I've talked about in so so many videos. It is actually a foundation powder. So you're probably saying, well, you just contradicted yourself. You said don't use a foundation powder over full coverage. So if you're wearing a full coverage concealer, you're thinking, well, then why would you use a foundation powder? But something about this one is very, very lightweight, and it has never caked up under my eyes and gives such a great brightening effect. I believe I discovered this by watching a video of Crispies, who is a younger YouTuber, but amazingly talented, and she uses this as her concealer. Now, I have too much to cover to use it as my concealer, but I did love the brightening effect it gave, so I bought it, tried it, and you know, feel like I have to say this as well, that everybody's under eye, of course, is different, and you might have more dryness and more wrinkles around the eye than I do, so not everything that I'm saying is going to work for everybody, but these are just recommendations, products that I've tried on myself, and I've used it on my mother, who obviously is older and has more dryness and fine lines. So these are just recommendations, and in here, somewhere in here, is something that's going to work for you. I can almost guarantee that. So aside from these two being great for under the eyes and the Nye powder, another one I used a lot for clients of all ages, and even on myself, once again, before I went cruelty-free, was this MAC Mineralized Skin Finish. And I have it in light, but I think there's like fair light or light fair. These are great for setting under the eye and brightening at the same time. I actually have it in medium dark too for a nice contour. This is a really nice powder. I don't like it for all over my face because it doesn't control shine at all. It actually has a little bit of a sheen to it because it's mineralized, and mineral powders tend to have a little bit of a sheen to them, which is why I could never wear Bare Minerals foundation, even the matte formula. It just never worked on me. I have too much sheen on my own. But for under the eyes, it gives a really, really smooth look, and it's really, really brightening. So that'll do it for all the powders that I love for the face and for the under eye. But I wanted to show you before I end this video a couple of brushes that I like to use when applying powders for the under eye. Now, face powder brushes, I couldn't get that out. Face powder brushes, you all know what those look like. You can use big ones, you can use smaller ones. I have tons of all different brands and all different price points, and they all pretty much work the same. If you're oily though, I do recommend a powder puff for evenings out before you leave. Take your whatever powder you're gonna use, whether it's the Nye or the Too Faced, take the powder puff and then just press it into the areas that get the most oily. I find that's a tip I learned working for Laura Mercier 20 years ago. She would always take the puff, kind of fold it like a taco, and just work it into this area, and I'm telling you, it really, really helps. But for the under eyes, I like this one from Sigma. It's a tapered highlighter brush, actually, F35, but I like how it gets right up in here. And then another one I like is this Delium Tools 960. It's flat, but I also like how you can just kind of pat it. And then this one is actually, I think it's a Laura Mercier blush brush. It's her cheek brush, but as you can see, they're very similar shaped, and they just set really, really nicely. But if you prefer something smaller, this Delium Tools 787 is great. This one, I use it sometimes for highlighter. You can use it to blend out eyeshadow, but it works really, really well for under the eyes. So as always, all of the products and links will be listed in the description bar. I really hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you did, I always appreciate those thumbs ups, yeah. And I would love it if you would hit the subscribe button and be a part of my Risa Does Makeup family. You can also follow me on Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, and Twitter. All that is under the username Risa Does Makeup as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you again soon.